I'm John Law, this is Chasing Cars, and this is a 2020 Subaru Impreza. Now for 2020, Subaru have updated a couple of things about the Impreza. Firstly, the styling. It's blink and you'll miss it update, but the front bar has been lightly restyled and the tail lights are a little bit new as well. Let me know what you think of how the Impreza looks in the comments section down below. I think it looks fine, but it's definitely not a car for extroverts. Now, they've also added their full suite of active safety technology across the range of models. That means from the base model Impreza up to this premium and the S above get the full suite of adaptive cruise control and everything you need in the modern day. They've also tweaked the chassis because that was an issue we had with the Impreza when it was first released in 2017. So let's see if that's made enough of a difference. But first, we're going to hop inside and check out the cabin. So now we come to probably one of the best parts of the Impreza hatchback, and that is the interior. The premium and the range-topping S both have deliciously luxurious soft touch everywhere you touch, under your arms and where you rest your elbows. It's a really nice place to be on a long trip. The seats themselves as well are also very comfortable. Now in the premium for 32,440 drive away, you do still get cloth seats. You have to step up to the S to get the leather seats, which are also electrically adjustable with memory function. They're really comfortable and the infinite adjust is excellent. I would definitely recommend that if you can, because the adjustment on the driver's seat in the premium is just a little bit too far. The ratchets feel like they're a little bit too far removed. However, back to the good stuff. You got a really nice size steering wheel in front of you with a lot of adjustments and a lot of buttons to be pressed, almost too many. You do figure them out eventually though, and it becomes fairly natural. You've also got a really nice touchscreen here. It's probably one of the best in class, and for this model you get navigation as standard. Naturally you get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as well. It's a wired system, digital audio and everything you could need. You've got your air vent controls down here as well, which is good, and some vertical air vents which look a little bit different. Overall, it's a little bit oppressive here in the black. In the range-topping S, you can also opt for an ivory white leather interior, which in combination with the sunroof as standard makes it quite a nice place to be. Moving on to the back seat, and it's pretty spacious back here as well. I'm 6'2", and behind my own driving position, which is a bit of an unfair test, I still have really decent knee room, and I've also got pretty decent toe room under the seat too. I've got fair amount of headroom for my height too. It's a little bit better in the sedan in this hatchback, but both aren't bad at all. As for amenities though, you do not have any center armrest, any storage really back here apart from the door bins. You've got no ventilation or USB ports, which is a bit of a shame when you're paying this much money. However, the nice soft leather padding on the armrests in the back here is very nice, although you do get scratchy interior plastics up top. But again, that's the sort of thing you expect. So that brings us around to the rear end of the Subaru Impreza. Now obviously this is the hatchback model. It looks pretty decent. It's again not particularly exciting back here. The taillights are a slightly new design and slightly smoked for 2020, but apart from that it's very similar. We also had the sedan on test, which has a more generous boot. This hatchback has 345 litres of storage space. The sedan has a much more generous 460 litres, so if you're looking to lug loads of cargo, sedan's probably the option. However, the hatch has a little bit of a load lip here that you've got to slide stuff over, but it's nothing major. And inside the boot, it's actually quite nicely finished, nicer than a lot of its competitors, so there's a decent carpet and a couple of little hooks and niceties back there, as well as this rather sturdy cargo cover. So all in all, around the rear, the Impreza hatch is pretty practical and pretty much no nonsense. So let's see how it drives out on the road. So what is the 2020 Subaru Impreza like to drive out on the road? First things first, let's talk about around the city. It's a really good companion for that sort of stuff. Although the engine isn't particularly inspiring, the four-cylinder boxer 4 with 110 kilowatts and 196 newton meters around town combined with the CVT gearbox, it is a pretty peppy motor off the line. Now, also around town, the damping feels good. It's not damped like the previous iteration. The chassis updates, they've reworked the dampers and there's a really nice controlled feeling to them. They're not floaty or too bouncy around town. It's very good. And the actual isolation is really nice. So it's smooth, it's quiet, especially in traffic. And I really like enjoying driving it around. It's like a little isolation tank. You just put music on and sort of cruise away and do whatever you want to do. We're out testing this obviously in a very Subaru friendly environment. it's raining, this is where this car should shine, and it does. So the chassis updates have extended to making this car feel quite enjoyable in the corners. It's not as darty and doesn't feel as lithe as something like a Toyota Corolla or a Honda Civic. Those cars definitely feel like they're a bit more athletic machines, but it's a very, very steadfast car on the road. You never feel like the car's going to do anything untowards beneath you. The chassis is very well planted, and especially in the sedan, it feels really well composed. So the premium and the lower L and the regular Impreza variants are fitted with the same Bridgestone Turanza tyres, T001s, and they suit the chassis character really well. They give a nice sort of wet grip, and they have a really good breakaway to them, but without being super grippy, so it doesn't overwhelm the chassis. Now the range-topping S has a grippier set of Yokohama Advan Sport V105 tyres on it, and the rubber compound's a lot stickier, so it overwhelms the suspension a little bit in the dry. In the wet, it's quite nicely matched, but the other trade-off with those sticky tyres is that they pick up a lot of grit around the city, and they're constantly sort of throwing grit up into the wheel arches, and it sounds a little bit boy racer really, so it's a bit of an odd selection, but that is the sportier variant. Now those Advan tyres are fitted to a bigger set of 18-inch wheels than in this car as well. Now this car's 17-inch tyres give a really nice sort of composed ride, doesn't let any of that harshness of the like concrete expansion joints around the city creep into the car at all, whereas the 18s do a little bit. So for me, I prefer the ride of this premium car on the smaller tyres, and yeah, overall it's a good ride. There is definitely a little bit of float over larger compressions, but that's fairly quickly cinched in, and it's kind of to be expected at this sort of end of the spectrum. Overall, it's a pretty quality feel. Now I'm going to talk about a couple of things that I don't particularly enjoy about this car, and one of those is the start-stop system. It's a little bit rudimentary, and the Boxer doesn't sound very good when it fires back to life, unfortunately. However, there's a little bit more that there's an issue with as well, because when the engine's stopped, the power steering cuts out. So you have this thing where if you want to sort of pre-select your steering angle before you turn, you have to give a wrench on this really heavy steering wheel, and then the car will fire back into life. It's quite odd. I don't understand exactly why they've done it. I don't understand why the steering doesn't work like in most other cars, but you know, that's probably a small gripe for me that you get used to owning the car. The other thing is the 4-cylinder engine is really quite anemic, and the CVT is one of the worst out there on the market, unfortunately. You can lock it into manual ratios using the paddles on the back of the steering wheel, which give a faux sort of ratio, and that can be quite helpful sometimes in more spirited driving. However, I found they were never really that helpful, and they sort of just, you forget that you're using them, and then you just want to go back to your default drive mode. You can lock it into a sports mode as well, which sort of gives you a bit more throttle response, but it doesn't really make the gearbox any more responsive. And overall, it just breaks the feeling as you go to accelerate in this car of the sort of luxury that it otherwise pervades with its nice soft touch and really good cabin isolation. However, one of the highlights of this car that you won't get on any other car in this price range is the Subaru all-wheel drive system. This is the thing that won them rally championships from mid-90s till the early 2000s. It's a really excellent system. They've sold a lot of cars because of it, and it's exactly the same in this. It's not like a haldex system that you'd find in an Audi product or something like that. It's a proper full-time all-wheel drive system, and it really contributes to this car's steadfast feel on the road and off the road as well, because we did test this car on dirt a little bit where it really does excel. You can pick a line and sort of accelerate throughout the corner, and it doesn't really feel like it's ever going to waver off that line. It's really impressive actually. You can just add throttle and it deals with it. And on that topic as well, we've got to talk about ESP tuning briefly, because it's very well done as well. So Subaru have obviously been doing sort of loose surface tuning for a very long time, and you can really feel it in the way that ESP cuts in, or rather doesn't cut in very much, because the car's decent enough that it doesn't need to often, and when it does, it just nips away at the brakes to sort of gently bring the Subaru back into line. Now obviously that's not exactly what the Impreza is for, but it's good to know that Subaru has still engineered that in, and it's a decent car to drive. Now for 2020, they also have updated and bolstered across the range the safety features with Subaru's EyeSight. That adds adaptive cruise, which works pretty well, although with the CVT it does tend to waver a little bit. Now it's been raining a fair bit in Sydney of late, and that's meant that the eyesight falls apart because the camera can't see, so it can't cross-reference, and it means the adaptive cruise control when it's raining outside can get clouded and not work, which is a little bit annoying on the freeway. It's got lane keep assist. It's just a rudimentary system. It's sort of a lane departure assist, and you've got rear cross traffic alert and a rear parking camera and rear parking sensors. To get front parking sensors, you've got to spend that extra money on the S model. You don't get it on the Premium, despite what it may say. So those are our detailed impressions of the 2020 Subaru Impreza. This year's update has definitely added a bit of extra value, and it's really improved on the chassis that was a little bit ropey, to be honest, when this 5th gen first emerged. Now, it's still not the most extroverted car out there, it's not the most exciting, but it's very luxurious inside and has an excellent amount of refinement and comfort. So maybe perfect if you're looking for a car like that, but honestly, that engine and gearbox combination just isn't that inspiring. Now let me know what you think of the 2020 Subaru Impreza in the comments section down below, and of course while you're down there, make sure you hit subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss any of our full-length Australian video car reviews. As always, thanks for watching Chasing Cars.